Welcome everyone to the OpenWallet Foundation. 1 year of the OpenWallet Foundation, our anniversary Zoom. Our agenda today is the achievements and future direction of the organization. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us. This session is being recorded. That recording will be shared on both the OpenWallet Foundation Discord as well as a blog post on the OpenWallet Foundation blog. During the course of this hour, I will be sharing links in the chat. If you have questions and answers, we have a fully packed presentation, but if you have Q&A, by all means, use the webinar Q&A function. We will try to get to your questions really quickly. Hang on a sec. All right. As with all Linux Foundation meetings, this is held under the Linux Foundation antitrust policy. If you have any questions about these matters, please contact your company counsel, or if you're a member of the Linux Foundation, feel free to contact Andrew Updegrove of the firm Gesmer Updegrove LLP, which provides legal counsel to the Linux Foundation. This is also held on the Linux Foundation Code of Conduct, which I sum up as be excellent to each other, but really be kind to each other, be respectful. These are the values that we care about. This is an open source community, and it is powered by this community, and it's really important that we're all working together. That link will also be shared shortly. And we have, as I mentioned before, a fully packed agenda. I'm going to turn it over to Marie and Daniel for the welcome. And thank you all for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sean, and welcome everybody. For those who don't know me, my name is Marie Austuna. I'm at Visa. That's my day job with digital identity. But here I'm in the function of the board chair of the OpenWallet Foundation. I'm super excited about 1 year since we first got started, and looking back, it's come a really long way. So, Daniel, please take over and share all the achievements with us and the way ahead.
Thank you very much, Marie. Yeah, everyone, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for having been part of our journey, part of the first year. We formally launched on February the 23rd of last year, so it's a bit more than 12 full months. And you're going to hear from a lot of people today. I don't want to take a lot of their time, but what we have been able to accomplish as a group is really impressive and is quite a bit better than what I think any of us, when we got started, thought we would be able to do. We have over 60 members. We have 11 governments that joined the OpenWallet Foundation, with a 12th that just sent a letter to join today. We have over a dozen code projects, and you're going to hear from Tracy about those. And we are truly excited to embark on a much more ambitious mission in our second year, and to create something that Brian is going to tell you about. There is an analogy that I would like to give you, and it's really something that I was fascinated with some time ago in Switzerland. I don't know who here is interested in railroads, but apparently there are quite a few different widths of these railroads. And Switzerland is a really small country, but when you go to the next slide, you see that this variety of train tracks in the world is quite staggering. Now, it looks as if all of Europe here in this chart is black, but that's actually not the case. Even in tiny Switzerland, there is a railroad that goes from Geneva, from Lake Geneva, up to the mountains. And it starts with tracks that are 1.4 meters apart. And then along the journey, these train tracks change. And they go from 1.4 meters to 1 meter. And for the longest time, you were unable to use one train. You had to switch. So basically, you used one train up the journey from Lake Geneva, and then the train stopped, and you disembarked and you boarded a second train that was designed for those narrower train tracks. What you'll see on the next slide is something that I really thought was quite ingenious. I hope you can see the video here. So this is basically a train, and it's on typical train tracks 1.4 meters apart. But then something really magical is happening. The train is able to adapt from the narrow tracks to the tracks that are wider apart. And the reason why I talk about train tracks on the OpenWallet webinar is because I think of the fundamental infrastructure in the wallet space as rails, metaphorical rails. Different countries are picking different credential formats. They're picking different protocols. Different use cases have very different realities. Now, in an ideal world, you might say, let's create a world where all the train tracks in the world look exactly the same. But that's not going to happen. I think all of us who have been in this industry or in these industries for some while know that it will likely never happen that we will agree on one credential format to rule all credential formats. So what we need is wallets that function like this train. If the reality is that we have lots of different rails, we need wallets that are able to adapt to different realities. And this is really the heart of what OpenWallet is trying to do. We're not trying to create standards. We're not trying to create wallets. We're trying to bring developers together to work on open source components that allow these wallets to cross from one country to another, from one use case to another, taking in mind all of the technical and regulatory complexity that comes with that. Thank you again for having been part of our journey. This is just the beginning of what we're trying to do. I am hugely excited for this webinar. And with that, we'll hand over to Ruth, who is going to tell you about the Governmental Advisory Council.
Thank you, Daniel. Hello, everyone. So the OpenWallet Foundation has created a dedicated group for the public sector. It has been operational for about 3 months. So if you can go to the next slide to see the details, Sean, thank you. And so the idea is was to create this committee, so the different governments around the world and also intergovernmental organizations as observers could raise their voices and also share their comments, inputs, and also advice to the governing board. And sometimes there are opportunities to share different perspective and inputs to the technical advisory committee as well, and other constituencies within the OpenWallet Foundation. And so so far, I mean, this committee is pretty new, but so far we have a lot of governments. If you can go to the first one, yes, to the first slide. And so far we have 12 governments that formally joined the GALC so far, but then we have several others that are still on the pipeline. In some countries, the process of appointing a representative from government agencies take more time. So we expect to have more government agencies participating in the council very soon. And then we have formally participating in this council, the World Bank Group and AMVA. And then we have also other observers that plan to join shortly. And in this link, you can find more information and also the operating procedures, which is basically the guidelines on how this council operates and who can be participants and how to join this council as well. So if you can go to the second slide, please. And so recently we had elections, and so the UK government has been elected as the chair, and we have two vice chair, which is one the Swedish government and the Argentinian government that are helping us vice chairs, and then also to enhance the collaboration cross-constituency within the organization. We have inward and outward liaisons. For example, the Swiss government will be the liaison to the Technical Advisory Council to make sure that we are all in the same page and trying to see and explore different collaboration areas. And so far, the agenda has been mostly focused on what's going on in different jurisdictions. So the different government agencies have been sharing what are their policies or regulation or the initial steps towards trying to provide any guidance or guidelines on digital wallet and how that impacts the future of that implementation within their jurisdiction. And so there has been a lot of opportunities to share the different lessons learned among the different participants in the GAC. And also they try to explore, while sharing that information, different cross-border collaboration initiatives and see how to better align the different policies to make sure that everyone is advancing towards interoperability from the global perspective. And then there has been some good opportunities for the GAC to provide their comments and inputs on some of the special interest group outputs, such as the Safe Wallet Guide, and also on the Open Wallet Principles. So it has been a good exercise for them to raise the different concerns, perspectives, and also to work closely with the public sector on specific outcomes and outputs. And so if you have any questions, or if you know any candidate that could be interested to join the council, please let me know, and you can contact me at GAC at OpenWallet Foundation. Thank you.
Ruth, let me just publicly say what I say so often. Thank you for the amazing job that you're doing. Ruth headed the secretariat of the ICANN GAC. And I think the OpenWallet Foundation couldn't have found a better person to head the secretariat of this GAC. So thank you again. And I would also like to thank specifically AMWA, and I think I've seen Lofi here. AMWA was, I think, the first intergovernmental organization that joined, and I want to thank Jacques from the Kingdom of Bhutan. Bhutan is not the biggest country in the world, but will forever be the first country that joined the OpenWallet Foundation's GAC. So thank you to AMWA, thank you to Bhutan, thank you to Ruth, and of course, thank you to all governments that joined the GAC. This is something that is new to the Linux Foundation. It's the first project with a governmental advisory council. It's an experiment. I know that we have been incredibly excited about it. I think there is a lot of excitement at the GAC as well as at the governing board. And I am really thrilled to see where this cooperation is going to go. If we want wallets to truly fulfill their potential, we need the public sector and the private sector to come together. And I think, Ruth, you're on a really great path. Thank you again.
All right, so I will jump in next. My name is Tracy Kurt, and I am the chair of the Technical Advisory Council meeting. I'll be taking you through what the Technical Advisory Council has been up to for the past year and some days, and then also the different projects that we've had that have been accepted into the OpenWallet Foundation. So Sean, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide. This is the best place to find out what the TAC has been up to. We have a specific website at tac.openwalletfoundation. And here you can find out information about what the TAC is, so who we are, what we're made up of, the different responsibilities that exist for the Technical Advisory Council. And it's all spelled out in our charter. And so for that, some of the things that we are responsible for are holding different TAC meetings where we talk about the different projects that might be coming in or different special interest groups and task forces that people are interested in proposing to the OpenWallet Foundation. We're also responsible for doing and putting together a set of governing documents. And so over the past year, we've put together a number of different governing documents that we've, shamelessly borrowed, stolen, however you want to say, from other open source projects and foundations, and really used the learnings from there. One of the most important governing documents that we have is around the project lifecycle. So if we look at the next slide, we'll see what our project lifecycle is all about. It starts with a proposal. So anybody who is interested in proposing a project to the OpenWallet Foundation can submit a proposal. The TAC will review those proposals, determine whether or not they meet the goals of the foundation and what it is that we're trying to accomplish here as far as a mission, and approve those projects as they do come in. There are different active stages that we have within the project lifecycle. Those stages are labs, growth, and impact. So labs are projects which the TAC really believes are important to the OWF ecosystem, the OpenWallet Foundation ecosystem. So examples of different sorts of labs might be things that are early in their development state, or things that are experimental code, or those who are looking to really understand what open source is all about and foster a collaborative development environment within the OpenWallet Foundation community. So once these projects come into the OpenWallet Foundation community, we expect that there are others who are interested in similar sorts of projects and will participate in those projects and really join in on our different channels to communicate, as well as do pull requests against those different projects. The second active stage that we have is called growth stage. So these projects are projects that are really interested in reaching that impact stage, and they've identified basic growth plan to do that. And so a growth plan might be that we're looking to build the number of maintainers that exist within this project. And so what is it that we have to do? Or maybe the growth plan includes information about how we will do releases. Or the growth plan might include goals around how we get people to adopt these particular projects. And so that stage is really an important stage for people to really build up the project and really have, in the end, what we would call an impact stage project. And these are projects that have been adopted by a number of different organizations. They are reaching their place where they're sustaining that cycle of development, doing active releases, doing the maintenance, and actually responding to the pull requests that are coming in. They may have long-term support releases where they support those releases until they have a new long-term support release, and then they will support that release. So that basically any sort of bug fixes can be retroactively applied to those long-term support. And then obviously with any sort of software development lifecycle, you'll have projects that will reach an inactive stage. We call these projects emeritus projects, where the project's maintainers have really felt that they've reached or are nearing the end of life, and that there are probably some other projects that are better suited to the needs of the community and the ecosystem. And so, like I said, projects within the open source OpenWallet Foundation are very important to really bringing that community together around a particular set of functionality that we want to see supported. And anybody out there who is listening to this webinar or not listening to the webinar are free and open to create a proposal for us to review and look at. And so if we go to the next slide, we'll take a look at the different projects that we do have within the OpenWallet Foundation. So my list of projects became too long to fit on a single page. And so I've separated this out into two different slides. The first one is our growth projects, and the second one will be our lab projects. So for our growth projects, we have two projects that exist. We have the Credo project, which was formerly known as Hyperledger Aries Framework JavaScript. It was a project that the Hyperledger Aries community brought into the OpenWallet Foundation, and I will have Timo talk about what that project is in detail. But before we get to Timo, I wanted to also say that the second growth project that we've accepted into the OpenWallet Foundation is Bifold. This was also previously a Hyperledger Aries project known as Hyperledger Aries Bifold. And Jason will be talking a bit about what this project is all about. So before we get to the labs project, I did want to hand off to first Timo to talk about Credo, and then secondly, Jason to talk about the Bifold project. So Timo, you're up first.
Sure, thank you. Hi, I'm Timo, one of the maintainers of Credo that was previously Airstream with JavaScript, and now one of the projects under the OpenWallet Foundation. So Credo is a TypeScript-based framework which you can build client or server-side solutions in Node.js or React Native. And we include anything that you need to build peer-to-peer secure communication, such as DITCOM, issue or verify credentials, or anything that has to do with decentralized identity technology. So a lot of what is part of the OpenWallet Foundation. This allows you to build cloud agents for mobile wallets. It allows you to build issuers, holders, provers, verifiers. You can use W3C credential in JSON-LD or JWT format. You can use the new STJOT credentials, or you can issue ANOCRED credentials, whatever you need for your specific use case and requirements. You can then also use DITCOM or OpenID for VC and integrate it with, for example, the check blockchain, the IND blockchain, or you can integrate it with any blockchain you like, or without a blockchain if you don't want that. So we really try to provide a lot of flexibility, but also implement a lot. So we take away the complexity of implementing all these different standards. Credo used to be Airstream with JavaScript under the Hyperledger Foundation. And so that means even though the OpenWallet Foundation is 1 year old, Airstream JavaScript, or now Credo, is a bit older. The first commit was on November 21st, 2019. We have over 60 contributors and over 175 forks on GitHub. So this is really a project we've been working on for years. Yeah, I think you can see in the amount of features we have in the framework. So initially focused on the Airways RFCs with DITCOM v1, Hyperledger India, and ANOCREDs. But as the identity ecosystem evolved, we evolved with it. And so we started to implement ARP v2. We started to add other ledgers, such as the check ledger, more credential formats, such as W3C, verify credentials, and BBS signatures. We already have quite a lot of production use cases or proof of concept that are being developed with Credo. So initially, a lot of the adoption was for mobile wallets. So I've included the list of 6 mobile wallets. All of these are published to the app and the Play stores, which you can download, which are using Credo under the hood to provide SSI functionality. Some are providing DITCOM functionality. Some are also providing OpenID for VC functionality. And recently, we've also really invested in making the framework usable for cloud environments. We are using it in cloud environments to run our product, but we're also, for example, working with the Office of the Government Chief Information Officer in Ireland and the Cybersecurity and Digital Solution team from Nova Scotia to integrate OpenID for verified credential issue and verification with STJOTs in full stack environment, so mobile wallets, but also issuers and verifiers in the cloud. And yesterday we had a major release, it's version 0.5, which is a big step forward. We added support for all the OpenID for verified credential protocols. We support issuance and verification of STJOT verified credentials. We improved interop of ANOCREDs by making it interoperable with the W3C verified credential standard, added diff presentation exchange if you wanted to, and a lot more changes. So this is really, I think, one of the biggest releases and aligning with a lot of the recent efforts. We're still working on a lot of new stuff. Going to add DitConf v2. We're going to add MDL and mobile EIDs to it. We want to align more with the architecture reference frameworks and are working on better integration, for example, with the secure enclave on iOS and Android for hardware-backed cryptographic key signing. And so, yeah, if you want to get involved, I have the links here. These will be shared later on, but I think that's a bit of like, what do we have and what is there to come for Credo? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Timo. I think it's great to see all the work that's already been done in this space, as well as the future direction. And obviously, people who are interested in participating, please do join the community. They are very welcoming. I've seen a lot of questions already being answered in the Discord channels, and so really appreciate you and the Aries community bringing Credo to the OpenWallet Foundation.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. All right, Jason, would you like to talk to us about Bifold?
Yeah, sure. Thanks so much for inviting us, Bifold community, today. My name is Jason Leach. I'm one of the maintainers of the Bifold wallet. We recently joined the OpenWallet Foundation in about February, so pretty new to the group, and it's great to be here. So Bifold is an open source wallet. We are probably, well, we're one of the consumers of Credo, so we can do all the things, well, a lot of the things that Timo just announced. We do OpenID, we do anon creds at the moment for some of our production wallets. We have a production version in British Columbia, Canada. They are just about to release their first widely adopted credential. It's a person credential, so it's going to be a foundational credential that's going to allow you to prove who you are so that you can get other credentials based on that. But we're also running some pilot projects with credentials for licenses to practice law, business licenses, and soon to be a liquor control certification. And we do that off of the Bifold project. We just rebrand it and then have it released to the Apple App Store and Google Play Store. We're also have pilot projects in a few other jurisdictions in Canada, including Ontario, who are working on some OID for BC work. So we're not married to the anon creds by any stretch of the imagination. And there's a think tank lab down in Brazil who are also working actively on it. So pretty vibrant community. I think we've had 31 contributors and 10 active maintainers, again, scattered across the globe, all working on it. And, while we have a lot of work done with the technical mechanics of different protocols and different credential formats, I think one of the things that I'm excited about with the project is figuring out, where the rubber meets the road, the end user interaction with this, because we've found that, a lot of us work in this field all day, every day, but it's very interesting to see the feedback and the questions and the comments we get when we release digital credentials to our citizens and really understand how they like to interact with them and how they like the privacy and self-sovereign capabilities of these wallets and what's important to them and what's not, and how we have to make it really usable for them to make this stuff work. Like I think Daniel alluded to, they don't want to know what's going on underneath the trains. They just want to get from A to B, and it's up to us. And a huge shout out to Credo for making this easy and really usable. So that's some of the work we're working on, and some of our trajectory, is to figure out a lot of the user interactions and expand our credential offerings. Like I said, with Ontario doing OID for BC. And I think that's all I got for you. So back to you, Tracy. And thanks again, everybody, for a warm welcome and having us here today.
Great. Thank you, Jason. Yeah, and thank you as well for bringing Bifold to the OpenWallet Foundation. I think it makes a great addition, especially alongside Credo in helping us kind of bring our mission to light. So really glad to see both Credo and Bifold come in as our first growth projects. Sean, if you wouldn't mind bringing up the slides again, we can take a look at the labs and have a look at those. So we do have 10 labs, I believe, if I count correctly, that have come into the OpenWallet Foundation. You see them listed here. We have a number of SDJOT implementations in different languages like Python, Kotlin, JavaScript, Rust, and .NET. We have a FarmWorker wallet operating system that is focused on low-code components for the Mendix platform that can be used to create digital wallets. They also use the Credo project as a mechanism to integrate into the Mendix platform. So I'm really happy to see that come into the OpenWallet Foundation. We do have walletframework.net. I believe this actually used to be ariesframework.net. And it is a multi-protocol wallet framework that enables OpenID for verifiable credentials and SDJOT verifiable credentials. We have the multi-format VC for iOS, which is a pure Swift package for creating verifiable credentials in multiple formats. So Ping Identity did contribute this to the OpenWallet Foundation. And then I did skip the one because I'm hoping that maybe David can talk a bit about it. But the other one that is here is the Android Identity Library. And so this is a project that was a lab that was contributed by Google. And so maybe I'll give David Zuthin a moment to just say a few words about that project and the reason why you brought that to the OpenWallet Foundation.
Cool. Thank you, Tracy. I just joined as a panelist. Just want to make sure everybody can hear me.
You
Okay.
sound good.
Thank you. Okay, I'm just going to show a couple of slides, just no more than a couple of minutes. So let me just find the screen share button. Sorry, I usually use Google Meet, so all the buttons always move around. Share screen, that is. I apologize for that. So you should be able to see some slides now.
Yes.
So it's right now called the OpenWallet Foundation Identity Credential Project. We are committed to changing the name to something less generic and more opinionated. We're working on finding a name. So it's really a set of libraries and applications for real-world identity. The initial focus was Android and MDL and just providing the library. It's a little more broad, the focus now. We got a couple of more people here at Google working on it. So we're planning to have iOS support, actually, written in Kotlin multi-platform, server-side components, and we also support multiple credential formats. So it's kind of intending to do all of it in a pretty opinionated way. So I'll skip through all this about how it all works. This is like standard stuff. Set library components. We have abstractions for like secure hardware, and which is useful if you want to support multiple platforms like Android Keystore on Android, the Secure Enclave on iOS, and so forth. We just started adding provisioning code that was out of scope. So the code we have in the tree right now, you can scan a passport and that way, like, create credentials from that. All happens in the app. We're moving that to the server side where it obviously belongs. That's where the document signing keys exist. Yeah, I mean, we support MDL, in-person presentation. We support the browser API. And we're working closely with other teams at Google working on the W3CWICG Digital Identities Project. That was a mouthful. Basically, we're bringing really crisp presentation through the web browser for much better user experience. The OS will have bigger. We're working with other partners on this. I think that's basically what I could fit in a couple of minutes. I would love to talk to more people about this. Very excited to be in the OpenWallet Foundation, working on this code together with everybody.
Great. Thank you, David. And thank you for jumping in and sharing what you have been doing there in the updates that you've had. It's really great to see all of these different projects come together And, I love seeing the communication that's happening on all of the different channels we have within Discord. And yeah, please do get involved with the projects. And thank you all to the submitters and proposers of these projects. And with that, I will hand it off to Sean.
And thank you, everybody. Oh, come on. Here we go. So the Linux Foundation hosts the communities that build some of the most important enterprise software projects. We have two different kind of community meetings within the OpenWallet Foundation. We have special interest groups, which I'm going to talk a little bit about. And we have Mirko here, who's going to talk about some of his work with the Credential format SIG. And then also task forces. Task forces are more focused with limited scope. We also have a number of community meetings that happen every week, every other week. We have the architecture special interest group, the credential format comparison special interest group, digital wallets and agents overview, safe wallet SIG, and the OID for VC due diligence team. Links to all these are going to be shared both in the chat as well as in the after presentation. But just to give you a sense of the work that these groups are doing, their names kind of explain it. The architecture SIG is working right now on a pretty impressive white paper around what architecture within the OpenWallet Foundation context could be. The credential format comparison SIG is my favorite, not just because Mirko's here, but because I love the work that's going into this part of the project. The digital wallets and agents overview just did a fantastic wrap up of the work they've been doing in the last few months as a quarterly review at the technical advisory committee meeting a few weeks ago. That link will be shared as well. It's really great to see that work. The Safe Wallet SIG has a couple of really great artifacts that they're producing. Number one is a paper around safe wallets, but also a selection tool to help you understand what safe wallet means in your context. And then the OpenID Connect for VC's due diligence team is working on how we're building bridges between the OpenID Connect community and OpenWallet Foundation. They meet every other week, and we just had a meeting this week, and they're really great. These are a ton of links. This is the worst slide I've ever created, and I apologize in advance to all of you for this. I'm going to share all these in a moment. But just to go through the architecture SIG white paper, the safe wallet guide, the GitHub for the credential format comparison SIG, and then digital wallets and agents, as well as the OID for VC. Before I jump to the next slide, I'd love to turn it over to Mirko to talk a little bit about what the credential format comparison SIG special interest group is doing. What are they working on? And just to give you a sense of where it's going this year, like what's coming from this special interest group. Mirko, you're up.
Thank you, Sean. Yeah, I had to laugh a bit in the beginning when Daniel made this comparison with the train tracks. And I think there were only 5 different things to support. And I'm like, yeah, 5 things would be great. We are more like 8, no, not 8 million, but let's look at all the different DIP methods. There alone, we have over 180. And unfortunately, we don't have the credential profile to rule it all. It would really help from a case of standardization or mass adoption. So we thought, well, we want to collect all the different approaches and to try to generate a framework saying, okay, you have a profile like AnonCreds. You can use AnonCreds with DIT-INDY, but you could also use it with DIT-Web. And then you are able, with this framework, to compare them. So you could say, well, okay, here I have, for example, predicates. Here I don't have predicates, but here I have crypto agility. And this will help the different providers out there to find their specific demand. So I could say, well, I have a use case where I need selective disclosure, and then the list will shrink down to the elements. And what we also struggling a lot, but hope to find a solution, is the definition, because a lot of times we are talking about, for example, selective disclosure, but how do we define selective disclosure? So we also try in this group to find a definition for this, and then in the best case, how to measure it. Does selective disclosure do I have full support? Is it a yes or no answer? Is it more like a spectrum? I can give to this. And we are not really done, but here we try to focus on the different resources like key management, etc., that will help the people to find the best fitting solution for this. And here we are also cooperating with other SIGs, because now somebody said, well, I know now my different profile. For example, I want to use this profile. Which wallets, which agents are supporting this profile? And here we are working together with the digital agent, wallet and agent overview group, which will allow to collect wallets and compare them. But these wallets are then also able to be tagged with the work we have done in the profile group. So I could say here I have an example wallet. It supports AppC, MDoc, etc. And this will also help to get more information share all around the globe. So thank you a lot at the OpenWallet Foundation to host us, and we hope to continue this year and bring mass adoption to the wallet usage.
Thank you, Mirko. I've just been told in chat I'm not allowed to have a favorite SIG, so you're no longer my favorite. I'm kidding. Let me share my screen one moment. Great presentation, by the way. Thank you. And that was Mirko Molik, who leads the Credential Comparison SIG. When we talk about getting involved in the OpenWallet Foundation, we have 4 main channels right now. We have more to come. The wiki we're spinning up shortly. Mailing lists. These links will all be shared in a moment. The mailing list, the Discord. Mailing list is where longer term threaded conversations happen. Discord is in the moment. Hey, I've got a question for Timo. Hey, Mirko, when is this meeting happening? It's really where the chatter is happening around the projects and the SIGs. Our GitHub and our labs GitHub is where the code is. It's where the documentation is. By all means, go in there and start kicking the tires. Then our community calendar. We are starting to ramp up our events work. And one of the first ones coming is the OpenWallet EUDI workshop happening next Monday, March 18th. It is at 8 a.m. PT, 11 a.m. ET, 4 p.m. CET. I will put the link in the chat in a moment. But we're working with the EU team on this, and we're really looking forward to it. It's going to be about 2 hours. It's going to go really in depth, and we're pretty excited for this workshop that's coming up next Monday. I'll put out a note tomorrow on Discord for everybody as well. We've got a couple of questions in chat that I'm going to in the Q&A that I'm going to deal with in a second as I turn it over to Brian to talk about the OpenWallet stacks.
Great. Well, thank you, Sean, and thank you everyone who's been presenting so far in this conversation. I've been lucky enough now to be involved with the OpenWallet Foundation since the turn of this year, although I've been a really big fan of it since its inception and since leading a good portion of some of the early days of this work over at Hyperledger. But recognizing there's so much other activity out there in the world around the open source wallet space, I was really happy to find us able to launch an initiative to bring all those pieces together. Next slide. And in the course of doing that, and in the course of recognizing the opportunity represented by the EUDI wallet landscape that's emerging and the mandate from the legislation that recently passed there, as well as the fact that we've had so many pilots now, partly through the COVID credentials work, but partly for all these other use cases you've heard about today, that the space is maturing rapidly and the regulatory environment is meeting up with the technologies that are finally settling down on a couple of key standards. And we're so well timed with the work that we're doing. But there's still some challenges that we've faced, like any open source project faces at this pivot point from that first kind of bubble of excitement to actually getting things in production. And one of those is, the world is crying out for open source wallet solutions. And in fact, open source is a mandate in that European side, but it's still the perception, and I think to a large degree the reality is that writing a full end user wallet is still pretty darn hard. And we're doing a lot to try to make that easier. But we really want to hopefully focus people's time and attention on the user experience of using a wallet to make sure it's the kind of thing that people will adopt out there, and really hope to make the protocol implementation and the support for the credentials and those things as easy and swappable and switchable and uniformly supported as the train that switches between gauges in Daniel's video. We also, as an open source project, need to operate upstream. because there's a lot of important work that's done in that last mile where you touch the consumers. Things like having a terms of service, things like thinking about user experience and adapting to that, and building to perhaps support specific use cases that are really best supported by the kinds of partners who want to show up and do branded wallets of one form or another. And rest assured, there will be more than one wallet on any given device. I don't think we're going to end up with a world where there's only one system wallet, for the same reason we have a competitive web browser landscape, a competitive mail client landscape, and a world today of hundreds of wallets that we hope will consolidate to a few, but we don't quite know what that final shape will be. What we want to ensure is that the credentials and the other types of important digital assets being held in these wallets are interchangeable between wallets to try to avoid vendor lock-in and preserve user agency and choice. And this is a mandate from our governing board, this is a mandate from the developers in this community, and increasingly from the policymakers who recognize the importance of interoperability, interchangeability. And so how do we really achieve this? And for this, Daniel has been leading a conversation since long before I joined about what is the right kind of conceptual frame for doing this, but also what's the right engineering frame and what's the right lessons that we can learn from other open source projects that have gone down this path. Next slide. So we've started to talk about the world of stacks, and stacks is not quite what we have today when you think of a stack of software. Today we have these blobs of projects, and we love them. They're like our family, but they're kind of oddly shaped, and you'd call them perhaps Legos, but they don't quite always fit together. They're not necessarily designed from the beginning to integrate with each other, although many of them do incorporate others and build upon that. And you've just heard, for example, how Bifold builds on top of Credo, and what we hope is that we'll see other projects build on top of others. But right now, today, we kind of have this collection. And this is how all good umbrella open source foundations begin. But what I think the market is starting to call for, and what we'd like to push, is this idea that we can take a subset of these projects and really talk about integrating them together and putting them out into market as a stack. And what does that look like? So next slide. Just next. So if we took a subset of them, and here, I put Bifold and Credo together because you've heard how they work together. Let's just say, for example, there was something in the SD.js project that they found useful. Maybe there's other pieces around support for secure hardware that might come from some other projects. But if we put those together into a stack, next slide. And again, this is a conceptual frame, and said in this stack, we want to make sure that this combination of bits hits a pretty high bar when it comes to the formats that it supports, the end user experience matches what the safe wallet SIG is looking for from a wallet that actually serves the interests of consumers and protects their privacy and all those kinds of things, that it hits the architectural SIGs concept of what that minimum threshold should be of the different features and functions, but allows us to, if we can achieve that, it allows us to do something interesting. If you can go next, it allows us to say, let's put this stack of source code together and allow other organizations out there, for example, a FUBAR company, to be able to relabel it, put their own logo on it, as you've heard from Jason is done in the British Columbia sense, to configure the right set of options, to compile it into an app, and then next slide. Once they've done that, to take that to an app store. And when you take something to an app store, or you distribute it as a cloud-hosted wallet, or you put it through some other channel, there's some things you do as an organization. You certify it, you're putting a terms of service against it, making sure it's fit for purpose for a set of use cases, and implementing whatever server-side piece might be necessary so that you can put it in the Apple App Store or Google Play or those kinds of forms. And that ultimately is necessary next to be able to get it out to your happy dancing end users. Right. So this is a model today, as we've heard, used by some of the projects. But if we can formalize this, if we can set a high bar for what that stack looks like, then we can do something magic. And if you can go next, what we hopefully see is that this stack would be repeated for other branded wallets, right? For the corporate wallets, for national wallets. If the EUDI wallets will need the same kind of workflow where we sit upstream. We really try to get to that 99th percentile of what people need for wallets in these different use cases. We set a high bar for it, and then hopefully it's something that can be easily rebranded and pushed down through this pipeline, through the supply chain picture. Because next, What we ultimately want to do is get that magic interaction between these happy users, right? Between two wallets that might sit on somebody's phone, so they can switch from one to the other, so they could use their national wallet to hold their education credentials, even if those were issued by educational providers, so they could use, a travel wallet that's specifically around their travel use cases, or a healthcare wallet, even pulling together credentials issued by government agencies or by corporate entities or by a local doctor, right, or by a local travel agent. That kind of interoperability, we would hope it would be accelerated by high quality stacks on that upstream left-hand side. Now, this is just a subset of our projects. I imagine if you go to the next slide, but we have a bunch already, and we certainly have the door open to more. But if we can think about, are there other combinations here? If you go next, there might be a combination we take of the .NET related components and the iOS native code components, combine that with the Android credentials project, and build a second stack out of those technologies. We might take a different slice through these projects, perhaps even some other code, next slide, and say there's a third stack that might emerge from this. What would be important is that if these stacks hit that same high bar defined by the architecture SIG, then we can really get to, if you go to the next slide, even if they have different upstream stacks, at the end of the day, we still want that magic interaction at the very end of that pipeline, those green arrows, where people can exchange credentials, they can move them between their own wallets, they can present them to each other in a way that maximizes interoperability. This is very much built on the existing technology work that's done, but it's taking a little bit more of a product management approach to the bigger ecosystem picture. That's really what we're talking about here. So we've raised this conceptually with the governing board, with the technical advisory council, with some of our SIGs. We're starting to put some conceptual pieces in place for how this works. It'll really rely upon our technical advisory council to play this harmonization role to a large degree. But every cross-cutting SIG, including with some that we might launch, including a secure hardware SIG and some other pieces, will really come to bear to make this all work. Next slide. And actually, that's really where the future. That's where we're heading. And it might mean recruiting some new projects that aren't yet in OpenWallet. It might mean being open to other stacks that exist outside and bringing them whole cloth into the OpenWallet Foundation. Ultimately, we don't want 50 of these things, or probably even 10. We probably just want 2 or 3, but we're probably going to want more than one, because there's so many different use cases out there, so many different deployment paradigms, so many different operating systems to cover. We want to be kind of preserve optionality at that point. But by focusing on these stacks, I think we can do a real service for the ecosystem, the commercial ecosystem, for the policy ecosystem around this, and to get where we all want to get to, which is true interoperability at the end. So with that, I think we've got 4 minutes to try to cover some of the questions. I know there was one question I wanted to answer from Tony out there, but maybe I'll pause a bit, Sean, and just see if there's any other kind of housekeeping you want to do before we get to the Q&A.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Brian. We do have a little bit of time. We can do some Q&A. The link to the EUDI workshop is in the chat for those who asked. We have a question from Jehun. How do I initiate a SIG? I'm interested in starting a secure hardware SIG.
Jehun, let's talk directly because I'm starting to collect names and interest in putting that together, including some interesting conversations that happened last week in Addis Ababa at the MOSIP Connect event. So if you can get in touch with us through the emails that Sean put in chat, we'll get sure to get you wrapped into that. But we'll run this through. We have a process for how we launch SIGs that involves raising them at the Technical Advisory Council and having the TAC approve them. So, but it always helps to have somebody motivated and interested like you as a part of that proposal. So thank you for that.
Awesome. Irving asked about a update to the Why the World Needs an Open Source Digital Wallet blog post. We do have future blog posts coming out. The Credo team has a blog post talking about 0.5.0. Mirko and the Credential Formats SIG has a blog post talking about their work. Both of them are coming out after I post the blog post with the recording from this anniversary session, along with the deck and all the links. That'll be posted as well. Tony, I did ask what your question was. If you want to put your question in chat, Tony, I can ask
Yeah,
Oh.
in telling him I was going to answer it live, I might have accidentally erased his question. But he had a question about the relationship between the work that we're doing, especially around Credo, and the European Union's digital wallet initiatives. Tony, I don't know if you want to ask verbally if that's something we can enable easily.
I think he's muted, but I can ask. His question is, how much do we need to pivot to ARF code bases to be ARF compliant versus how does the Credo team feel they have the ARF covered? Tony's team is a Credo supporter, so maybe either Brian or Timo, if either of you want to jump on that.
I'd leave that to Timo. Do you want to answer that, or is that something for a follow-up?
Sure. No, I think we're currently closely following like the efforts that are ongoing, because like there has been a lot of work going on, but like we are a specific technical implementation, and there was a lot of like still fake about what do we need to implement exactly. But for example, now the EU wallet reference implementation was published last week, which we're looking at to see, okay, what standards are they implementing, and just as things evolve, we are implementing them. And that's why we're now focusing to implement OpenWallet verified credentials, SD JOTs, MDL, as these specs evolve. And so once they are like very clear on like these specific versions, then we are like 99% there. So like the final step should then be minimal to get to full compliance.
Awesome. Thank you, Timo.
And I think that brings us to the end.
It does, unless someone else has another question they want to throw in chat. I guess I'll turn it over to Brian. Yes, Jehun is following up to a comment Daniel made. Awesome. Thank you, Jehun. I'll turn it over to Brian, Daniel, and Tracy.
Yeah, well, I just want to say thank you to all the contributors. Thank you to all the organizations and the sponsors that have made this work possible. This is a terrific outcome from a first year for an organization like ours. This is a rocket ship. I feel very honored to be a part of that. And I don't speak for Daniel or for Tracy on this, but I do know this is something that's very shared widely by the Linux Foundation team in pushing this forward. So Daniel, why don't well, actually, Tracy, why don't I pass it to you, and then you can pass it to Daniel.
Great. Thank you, Brian. Yeah, I completely agree. Thank you to everybody in the community for making the past year so successful as far as getting the governance set up, getting the projects brought to the OpenWallet Foundation. I think we have a lot to continue doing, and I really look forward to seeing these projects come together very closely and working closely together. One thing that I will say is that, you know, everybody is welcome to join the community, and this is your invitation. If you feel like you need an invitation, this is it. I'm asking you to come in, join us, participate in the projects, participate in the special interest groups, the task forces, talk on Discord. If you're interested in the Technical Advisory Council meetings, please join those. We are starting the next election cycle, so we're looking for 2 at-large members on the Technical Advisory Council, and if that's something that you would be interested in, you know, please do put your name in the hat, and we will, yeah, look forward to working with you closely in the community. So Daniel, to you.
I think I am the 3rd person in a row to say thank you to all of you. Let me close by mentioning again the webinar on Monday. You will hear directly from the European Commission, directly from the CTO of the EUDI wallet program. You can ask questions. We see this as a huge opportunity, so we hope that a lot of you are going to tune in there as well. There is a lot to come in 2024, and we hope you're going to share the way with us, and we're excited for what's next. Thank you, everyone, and see you soon online.
Thank you all. Happy 1st